Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'm a friend of Steve Lindsay's, your good pastor, having known him at St. Asaph's in Ballackinwood, near where I live, in Ardmore. My husband is here with me this morning, Jim Abbott. Raise your hand. He's the member of the congregation who doesn't sing. Ever. But we're delighted to be out here with you. We don't know this area very well, and we're just charmed to discover it in your friendly welcome. My ministry in the Diocese of Pennsylvania has been one of transition focus. So I've led 8 parishes through interim ministry to the welcoming of a new rector. And now in partial retirement, I serve the diocese as a discernment consultant, helping search committees. So this may be a path some of you know very well from previous searches. Albeit 9/11, I didn't write a sermon for that commemoration, but I hope that in our prayers we will take a time of silence or offer a prayer to remember. The gospel before us today is an extraordinary one. People call this 15th chapter of Luke the gospel within the gospel. We've just had these pages. What a story you could tell about Jesus' life and ministry. So here we hear him tell this story of a lost sheep and coin. The determined shepherd, the diligent sweeping woman, heaven's joy over a repentant sinner. It's a simple enough story. You could tell it to your children. Indeed, whole children's programs have been based on these very stories in church life. So no fancy interpretation seems required. On the surface, we're done. But wait, there's something that doesn't quite add up. Jesus is, after all, talking to the scribes and Pharisees. And with these leaders, he's polling very low, maybe a 10% approval rating. They're extremely angry, enraged even, by his practice of frequenting the least palatable characters in the community, the tax collectors, the unclean people, even those who conspire in their own sinful behavior. So here are these powerful Pharisees, many of them men with wealth, connections, and scrupulous observers of the law, paying attention to every detail and holding people's feet to the fire, lest they blaspheme or sin against law. You would think Jesus, as a young leader, would be courting them, showing up, listening to their concerns, making sure they're on board. They demand, however, an explanation for his behavior. And Jesus responds, but clearly he has no plan to conform his ministry to their demands. Think about how you would feel if your newly called leader had little time for those who did the most work in the parish, for those who were the biggest givers, for those who were present every Sunday, but focused instead, spending hours of each week on concerns of the people on the margins, whoever they might be in the community. Anger might build. You might begin to feel as though this is not a shared ministry. This does not feel right. Well, the Pharisees and scribes rebuked Jesus. And this is the 3rd time they rebuke him in Luke. So they're building up quite a set of issues against him. But remember, Jesus was not a settled pastor. He was an itinerant leader with a very short ministry. We believe it was about 3 years in length total. And among his greatest priorities was to devote time and attention to the leaders he was cultivating to carry forward his teaching after his death. Perhaps he's engaging these Pharisees at all because he needs the disciples to hear this response. let's take the lens of leadership seriously. That shepherd, that woman, both seek the sheep or the coin, that which is lost, with diligence and assume much risk in doing so. Why? Well, for the shepherd, 99 sheep, those he's left behind, represent a small fortune. Each animal was valuable, so leaving the 99 in the wilderness to seek the one seems extreme. The coin that the woman is sweeping her house to find, according to my commentaries, would be worth about 1 day's labor. She would be the household's banker, among her 1,000 other tasks necessary to reproduce daily life. And she's put all these things aside, lighting a candle to search by candlelit when she could have been sleeping to address this one coin. Now the story looks like a parable about leadership. It shows leaders choosing to apportion their time and energy in very particular ways, seeking, finding, rejoicing, and then calling the community to rejoice together. As a leader, Jesus was teaching a radically new way of being human. Rather than conforming to the wishes of the powerful, he's articulating a vision. Jesus assumes his actions will be criticized. That goes with the territory. He literally says it in his closing words. He imagines this ingrained culture resisting him. And he says, just so, I tell you, there is joy in heaven, there is joy in God's heart, and in the angels over the one that is found. And his heart must be peculiarly adept at hearing the sound of God's joy. Remember, he heard it when his mission began, when he heard the sound of God's voice at his baptism, saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." He knows that sound of affirmation. Well, Jesus asked the Pharisees, indirectly through this parable, to choose leadership that connects, not condemns, that gathers rather than shuns, that restores community rather than isolating the chosen. This perspective doesn't allow the distinction of holy versus unholy. You see how he's taking that distinction away. The contemplative monk Richard Rohr writes, "It's all sacred or nothing is. It's all sacred." Well, this is an interesting gospel for any parish at any time in its life of ministry. It's a gospel that lifts up wholeness, the importance of caring for a whole community. Are you modeled on the care and deliberative attentiveness of the shepherd and the sleeping woman? Now, before we leave this parable, I'm drawn to the numbers it emphasizes. 10, not 9. 100, not 99. We don't have a sense of numbers the way people in the ancient world did. A whole number carried meaning. It symbolized integrity, completeness. So returning that last one changed all the others, giving them that sense that we are well, we are one, we are whole now. I'm reminded of learning that in some African languages, when someone falls ill, people say, "We are sick in that one." The illness is part of a human fabric, simply manifest in one person at a time. God's intention for us at the creation was wholeness. Remember God's words at the end of each day in the creation stories. And it was good. And it was good. And it was very good. Whole, complete. We lose sight of it so often when we compromise, when we satisfy ourselves with baby steps, with increments of what is truly needed. This gospel reminds us, go for 10, not 9, 100,